Welcome to College Compass by experts at scholarship.org. For over 40 years, our team at the George Snow Scholarship Fund and scholarship.org has been dedicated to helping students like you access resources and guidance you need to succeed in college and beyond. In each episode, we'll sit down with experts to help you overcome challenges and make the most of your college experience. My name is Tim Snow. I'm president of the George Snow Scholarship Fund and scholarship.org.
And my name is Shannon Elwood. I am the Director of Communications for the George Snow Scholarship Fund, but I also bring years of experience working closely with college students throughout their educational journeys.
So November is actually National Scholarship Month, and so we're going to celebrate that by diving into the world of scholarships, how you can find them, how you can secure them, get them, so that you can use them for your college journey. Joining us is Dr. Kristina Taylor. Dr. Taylor is the Director of College and Career Center at Cypress Bay High School in Weston, Florida. She's named the 23-24 Brace Advisor of the Year for her dedication to helping students earn college acceptances and scholarships. And she's going to share the strategies and advice that she gives her own students so that you can strengthen your scholarship search. We're also welcoming back a familiar voice, Leslie Cornwell, our Vice President of Scholar Services. Leslie works directly with applicants throughout the selection process for our own scholarships. She's going to be tackling some of the biggest misconceptions and some of the common questions that you might have as you apply for scholarship. So welcome you guys very much. We appreciate you being here and sharing your information. You guys have so much information about scholarships and the best way to go about finding them. But I wanted to sort of set the stage a little bit about really what we're going to be talking about today. So there's many different forms of financial aid, loans, grants, scholarships. And Leslie, if I could ask you to sort of briefly define some of those different forms of financial aid and how they differ, but also, you know, we're not going to be talking about those. So just kind of a brief overview of that.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the bad one, loans. That's what you don't want to have to take out. I know it's a necessity, but loans mean that you have to pay them back. And you're going to be paying back more than what you borrowed because they're going to be charging you interest. Whether they charge you interest from the moment you take out the loan or after you graduate, that's still something you want to avoid. Grants and scholarships obviously are the best because this is free money. You don't have to pay anything back. So there's absolutely no reason for you not to be applying for as many scholarships as you possibly can. There is no such thing as too much money. The last option is work study. Again, that's money that you're earning, but you do have to work for it. Your school will find you a job at the school. That money will get paid to your student account, but it's going to be like any other job. It's going to be time out of your schedule. So again, scholarships is the best way for you to go, or any other free money that you may receive, whether it's from the federal government or your state government or your school.
Great. Well, that's a good base and foundation for us to start our conversation. So, Dr. Taylor, would you mind telling us about your role as the Director of College and Career Center at Cypress Bay High School and how you actually support your students?
Definitely. So at Cypress Bay High School, my office specifically is responsible for everything related to college and career. So we handle everything from start to finish with their 4-year pacing guides, planning out for what the next steps are going to be, securing funding for college, determining what career path to follow. It's one-stop shop when they come to the College and Career Center. I'm actually a very proud graduate of Cypress Bay High School. I graduated class of 2005 as a first-gen student. I was the oldest of 4, and there's 5 years between myself and the youngest. So my parents were paying for college for 4 of us, which is why scholarships are so near and dear to my heart, because my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate were fully funded by scholarships and grants. So my parents actually didn't have to pay a penny for any of my degrees, which I said, as long as, someone else was funding it, I was more than happy to keep going to school. So I'm really passionate about helping our students find ways to come out of college and come out and enter their careers without having to worry about that debt. When it comes to how we support them in the current role, I mean, again, it's literally everything. We meet with students, we meet with parents, we bring in universities, we bring in scholarship foundations. We try to give them as much exposure, and we oversaturate them so that they definitely cannot say that they didn't know about something, because we try to make sure that everything is accessible to them.
Is that common to have that kind of resource at a high school?
Yes and no. We are extremely lucky at Cypress Bay High School that we're in the position that we're in. We have 2 college advisors, which most schools in the district only have 1. It is typically a position with high turnover, so you won't usually see the same college advisors there year after year after year. But thankfully, Cypress Bay sees, the value in having us and having the center, and our space is huge for the kids, and they really do genuinely support every random idea and initiative that we come to them with. We're also very lucky to be in a community that supports our kids. So a lot of our scholarships are kind of homegrown. Our alumni network is huge, which also helps. But in general, all schools in the district do have access to a college advisor, and then as well as a college and career team at the district level.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's good to know. And hopefully other schools and high schools around the country are offering that same kind of resource, because that is really important to the students as they go off in this next, part of their lives. And you're a perfect example of somebody who took advantage. And I'm sure you invested, we probably talk about it a little bit later, but a great deal of time and energy into securing those scholarships.
Absolutely.
And so having you as our guest today to share that, it's really, it's going to be meaningful to our listeners for sure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And so when you work with your students on finding scholarships, what's the first step that you tell your students to do for searching for scholarships, or when is the ideal time for them to start searching?
They need to start searching as early as possible. I have a 6th grade daughter. She's already looking at scholarships for middle school students. A lot of the kids don't realize that this isn't something that's isolated to 9th through 12th grade, and it's definitely not something that stops after graduation. A lot of the scholarships are single distribution, so the kids can start freshman year having freshman year fully covered, but if you don't keep working at this, you still have to pay for sophomore, junior, and senior year. So I encourage them to start very early. One of the easiest scholarships for them to get started with early, in my opinion, is Raise Me, which is a micro scholarship platform where kids are getting money for doing things that they're going to be doing anyways. They just have to keep a portfolio of it. So we give them access very, very early on through biweekly newsletters where we do scholarship spotlights, and we give them different databases to search. And I also strongly encourage that they make it part of their routine. I think that our kids are very well accustomed to homework and studying and, extracurriculars and going to their meetings. It needs to become routine. Every week, my recommendation is 2 to 3 scholarship applications.
Oh, wow.
It should become just something that, okay, we have a block schedule. So the kids have A days and B days. On A days, I'm going to apply to scholarships. So that way, by the end of their senior year, they have this huge plethora of scholarships that they've applied to, and every amount, it adds up. It adds up very quickly. So I think just getting them into the routine and helping them also filter out the good ones from the bad ones. Getting them to understand that if it sounds too good to be true, it is definitely too good to be true. Nobody's giving you $20,000 for putting your email address in. What you've now signed up for is 20,000 emails from whatever, search engine you've just given access to your information to. So a lot of our time is also spent on figuring out what are appropriate scholarships for you to be applying for and understanding the difference between different scholarships.
And so what resources do you recommend they use to find scholarships, or how do you find scholarships for them?
Social media.
Okay.
Social media, to me, is one of the most underutilized resources for scholarships. I make it a point to follow accounts that invest in the kids and are, dedicated to helping students secure funding for college. We have some great resources right in Broward County. There's a former Brace advisor who opened a nonprofit, and she runs an account called Scholarship Money for Students, the Scholarship Plug. She's phenomenal. They put out scholarships every day. I repost on average 5 to 10 scholarships a week for my kids. And then my recommendation is always, hey, if you can't do it today, screenshot it, save it, and do it later. Through the district, we also have access to something called Zello, which is a college and career readiness platform. On there's someone at the district level who oversees a scholarship database. What I like about the Zello scholarship database is the fact that it is vetted. Those scholarships are vetted. The person at the district who's inputting these scholarships knows that students in the past have been able to secure funding through them, knows that they're from reputable organizations, and the kids have access to it in one place. And then at Cypress Bay, we're 70% Hispanic. We have a very, very, very unique immigrant population within our 5,000 students at the school. So another organization that I find that puts up a phenomenal resource for all students, not just immigrants, is it's called Immigrants Rising. If they just search Immigrants Rising Scholarships and Fellowships, there's a database that's updated daily with scholarships and fellowships that have deadlines between today and 120 days from now. So it's constantly updating. You're able to sort and set filters on that database, which to me is amazing because you can select all citizenship statuses, all visa types. You can select by year, seniors only, all of high school. It goes all the way to undergrad and graduate programs. So that I think is an often underutilized resource by the kids. So we do try to really share that out often.
That's a great resource.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's so good. And a lot of times I have to warn the kids, like, it's not just for immigrants. It's just, that's the name of the nonprofit. But the actual resource is amazing. And the fact that they're able to set all of the filters by GPA, and it takes the guesswork out of it because you open it up, you read through it. Do I meet all of the requirements for eligibility? I do. Great. There's a button at the bottom that says apply now. It takes you straight to the application. So it really, really eliminates any of the guessing or the legwork for the kids.
That's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a lot of resources, and the fact that the district is taking it so seriously. Zello's got these vetted opportunities because that's a big deal, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that we have found is it seems like students have they kind of come into this process with a misconception that, I got to be a 4.0 student. I got to be a great athlete. I got to be a class president. Can you talk about like how you, we know that that's not the case, right?
Absolutely.
But how do you communicate that to your scholars and encourage them to apply?
I encourage my kids to play to their strengths. So a big part of identifying scholarships for them to apply to is looking at their existing activities, resumes, classes that they've taken, areas that they're passionate about, and then isolating that and looking for those types of specific scholarships, helping them understand, because a lot of kids will say, well, my parents make too much money, I don't qualify. They're not really understanding the difference between like merit-based scholarships, need-based scholarships, holistic scholarships that are actually going to look at you as an entire student and see, okay, leadership, academics, community service, what have they done in all of these areas? And then also helping them understand that need-based varies from scholarship to scholarship. So we have some scholarships that need-based, the cutoff is a combined income of $65,000 a year, and others that need-based, a combined income of $350,000 a year will qualify you for it. Right. So really making sure that they understand how to purposefully search and apply for scholarships. I think that also stressing the fact that $500 is $500. A lot of times they all want to apply for the Coca-Cola scholarship. They all want to apply for the $50,000 a year scholarship. Yeah, that's great. But guess what? That means that all those people that are focusing their energy on those huge scholarships are missing out on a series of $250, $500, $400 That adds up very quickly. So I think that getting them to pay more attention to the smaller scholarships is really important as well. Just because they have to understand that over time, it's it's a game of making sure that you're continuously trying to put money into that bank for college.
Well, and you touched on the difference between the
Mm-hmm.
need-based and the merit-based scholarships. And I think that that's important for students to realize that there's a big, there's a big difference there, right? And then you called it something I've not heard of, the holistic scholarships,
Mhm.
which I sort of think of as ours. Our scholarship program is very
Yes.
much like that. I mean, it is need-based, but then it kind of becomes merit-based after that. And so I'm glad to hear that you're, that making them aware of those distinctions. And I tell you, it's funny because we talk to our kids obviously a lot, and a lot of times we'll interview them, to hear their stories. And I have to say that probably 100% of the students that we interview, the common thing that they share with us is that I never thought I was going to get or be eligible to receive a scholarship,
Yeah.
and that somebody like you in their high school has encouraged them to apply, and they did, and they ended up getting a substantial scholarship. So to our listeners, if somebody's encouraging you to apply for any kind of a financial aid opportunity, man, please don't discount yourself, and take advantage of that opportunity and invest the time and the energy that it takes to, complete the application, because, you'll be very surprised with the results of it.
Definitely. And get to know those professionals on your campus and in your life, because the better I know you, the better I can recommend scholarships for you. So if I know you're somebody who wants to be an elementary school teacher, the second an email hits my inbox, I'm going to print it out, put your name on it, and save it for the next time you come by my office, just because I know you and I know what you want to study and I know what the goals are, the long-term goals. So it's easier for me to help you get those scholarships because I know what scholarships I should be kind of saving for you and ear tagging so that you make it a point to apply for those.
Yeah. And then so for you, Leslie, what are some important details that you think anyone who's applying to a scholarship should know?
Well, I think that Christina's definitely hit on the most important one. I think is knowing that you're the right fit for the scholarship. It's just like when you're applying for a job. You go on Indeed and you're just putting your hat in the ring for 100 different jobs, but are you an architect? No. So why are you applying for that? It's the same kind of thing. If you're not paying attention to what the scholarship is telling you that you're eligible for, it's a lot of time that's just wasted if it's not the right fit. So I do think that is the most important thing. I think you need to pay attention to what they're asking for. If they're asking for recommendation letters, why are you waiting until the night before the application is due to then be panicking and reaching out to a counselor or a teacher? They're busy. They're doing hundreds of these for students. So prioritize, make sure you understand everything that's required. And all scholarships are different. Some require things that others don't. But it's worth it for you to spend the time and then to also know, well, how does this scholarship work? Is it going to be a one-year scholarship? Is it going to be with me for my entire duration? How does that work? Is it renewable? Because you need to pay attention to that, because that means you're going to have to do this again. So it's just a matter of paying attention to the details, which is extremely important because you're talking about your future and you're talking about making it possible to afford the future that you want to have.
Yeah.
And these are all great work habits, that you need to start with. And I love that you're saying this at an earlier age, because you do. You shouldn't just be starting this in fall of your senior year. These are things that you should be working on as soon as you possibly can. So I love that Kristina is talking about this because I think that's crucially important.
Yeah. And on the recommendation letter side, I know some programs or colleges require that the recommenders submit through the platform, but if they don't require that, I'm sure students could be collecting the recommendations ahead of time. So, or even make it a general recommendation letter so it's not addressing a specific school or scholarship fund. So they can just have that ready to go every time they submit an application, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a letter of recommendation request form that the kids can fill out and give to whoever they're requesting a letter from. And one of the spots indicates whether or not they need to say if it's for universities or if it's for scholarships. And for scholarship purposes, we encourage our staff to write kind of a generic scholarship letter and then issue copies of that to the student so that the student does have that on hand ready to go for different scholarship opportunities.
That's smart.
I think that's incredible that you do that, because I think that was a great point that you had, Shannon. I think if the students were able to keep a file
Yeah.
of these recommendation letters, there's no excuse, especially if a scholarship is saying it's not mandatory, it's optional. Why would you not be doing it? I mean, it's just, you have them. Now you don't even have to go and ask somebody and wait. You know, that's just a fabulous idea.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have at least one
Not at
ready
all.
to go.
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up another question that I always have, because you had mentioned earlier, like you're talking about applying for 2 or 3 a week or whatever the goal is. How do you encourage students to keep track of that? Because I can imagine, at least thinking back, well, even to myself right now, if I was applying for 2 or 3 things a week, I got to figure out some system in my head to keep track of all that information. Which ones did I apply for? Things like, deadlines. Can you tell us about that?
So at Cypress Bay, we utilize spreadsheets. So either an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet where the kids have a template that they're basically just plugging into. Name of the scholarship, website, email associated with the scholarship if available, date scholarship is due. They have to input, like, if it's letters of rec, if they need a resume, like what the different steps are. And then we encourage them to have a column that says, date, I'll hear back, basically. Because a lot of scholarships are great about saying decisions will be sent on such and such day. So we like to have a date there so that they can kind of keep track of things. And then I'm a big show me person. So when they sit in front of me with their parents and they say, I've applied to 12 different scholarships, Dr. Taylor, show me. Like, share the doc with me. Like,
Yeah.
let me see. Maybe other kids would also like to apply for these scholarships. So I think that is a really good way for them to keep track of it. Plus, we do give scholarships in-house to students who go above and beyond when it comes to applying for scholarships. So that's kind of their way of tracking and then submitting proof that they've applied.
Oh, that's interesting.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love that motivation. That's a great idea.
Very cool. Well, and in a lot of scholarship applications have some sort of an essay or a personal statement. Are you helping them with that? And how do you go about that?
We're fine-tuning the process. Every year, we've moved our deadline in supporting with personal statements and essays up because, as I had mentioned, like, we have almost 5,000 students at Cypress Bay. There's 2 of us. So last year we had made the first day of school the deadline for personal statements for our feedback. And the first day of school, I received 400 personal statements.
Whoa.
Impossible. So this year we moved it up to July 1st. If you did not submit your personal statement for first initial review by July 1st, we can no longer support with it. We do host essay writing workshops. In the summer, we take a full day where the school gives us access to the media center. The kids come in and it's like a peer review setting. So by the time they leave that workshop, they've received feedback from 4 peers and 1 adult. So it's, I think, a really good way for them to get different eyes on their paper. And then the other thing that I find is really important with the kids is to, again, encourage them to start early. Those Common App themes have not changed in I don't know how long. You have 7 prompts to choose from. Try to stay away from number 7. Make sure that you're writing a story that is authentically you. If I can change the name on the application and the story still applies to another student, you shouldn't be telling me the story. I already heard it. At Cypress Bay, the big ones that we try to encourage them to stay away from are athletic and sports-related injuries, divorce, immigration. I mentioned before, 70% of our population are Hispanic. They came from somewhere else. So I think that staying away from the cliche topics and then reminding them that this doesn't need to be a sob story and this does not need to be a traditional 5-paragraph essay. Some of the best essays I've read and remembered are the ones that are extremely non-traditional, that like stick with me in a way that years later, I'm still thinking back to how the students structured their thoughts and their ideas.
Yeah. And just to expand on that a little bit, you're so right. The authenticity of it is important. It comes across. The reviewers, they can sense that when they're reading the application. And, our application is really designed for us to get to know the students.
Right.
And so if you don't tell us about something, we have no way of knowing it. We're not mind readers. And so use that opportunity to tell us about, challenges that you've overcome, things that you're proud of, accomplishments that you have achieved. And again, if you don't share it, we have no way of knowing it. And so it's sort of, you kind of got to lay it all out on the table, and don't be shy about that. And some of the things that they share with us are very difficult to share probably for them, but the fact that they take the time to do it, and I think almost all applications are strictly confidential, so you don't need to worry about those kind of things. But it's very important that the students focus on that. I think we need to book another session about the tap into your workshop on the essay writing and the personal statements.
My favorite thing to ask the kids when we're first brainstorming ideas for their essay is, tell me the weirdest thing about you. And if they freeze, I look at the parent and I'm like, what was the weirdest thing your child did growing up? And that eventually gets us to a place where it's
That's
like,
awesome.
There's an essay this year and I asked her that and she said, well, sometimes I eat my cereal with water. I was
my
like,
gosh.
oh, why? Come to find out, she's a cross-country runner. She needs the carbs. She doesn't have the time to go searching for milk or worrying about the fact that there's no milk in the house. She drinks it with her water. She eats it and she gets out there and does what she needs to do. So she wrote an essay about how she applies that same mentality to all aspects of her life. And like, I'm not going to dwell on what I don't have or what I can't get access to quickly. I'm just going to work with what I've got and I'm going to keep it moving and make sure that, and immediately that was like, she chuckled. I'm like, tell me what you're thinking. I eat my cereal with water sometimes. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so it's something that they don't think about, but a lot of times, like, the weirdest thing about them will tell you so much about their personality.
Right.
So I think that that's always like a good way to start that conversation.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I can see why you were the Brace Advisor of the Year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Incredible
That's
advice.
so smart. And something like that, like the reader or the selection committee member is going to remember that. It's going to stick in their brain and they might think, I want to meet this person. So they can invite you to an interview.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could have written the same essay about your work ethic, but starting it and her first sentence is, sometimes I eat my cereal with water. That is the first sentence of that essay. And I tell them all the time, I know in the first paragraph whether I want to read the rest of your essay or not.
That's so true.
If I don't know in the first paragraph, or I'm on the fence, or you lost me by the third sentence, I've checked out. So I think that is a really, really important thing to remind the kids of. Don't get to the meat in your third paragraph. You already lost me in the first.
Right.
So.
That's
interesting.
Awesome.
Very interesting. That's a great tip. Amazing tip. Earlier, you talked about scams and
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of different, when students just go on to, let's say, a Google search or something like that, a lot of things are going to pop up, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of them are, I call them data mining sites, essentially. And like, you touched on it, but how do you communicate that to your students, and how would you communicate to our listeners, to be aware of that kind of thing that's really out there?
Yeah. So what I had mentioned before about if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. I remind the kids all the time, like, hey, nobody's knocking on your door and giving you $120,000 for college. That's not how this works. So I do try to encourage them to use their best, try to be smart about it. And if you're on the fence or you're not sure, bring me the scholarship. Say, Dr. Taylor, I got an email about this scholarship and I was just wondering if it's like legit. Like, should I be doing this? Trust the scholarships that your school is putting out.
Yeah.
Trust that if I'm sharing a scholarship with you, it's because I'm confident in the scholarship and I feel comfortable sharing the scholarship with you. Or usually 9 times out of 10, I would say the scholarships I put out are scholarships that I know former students of mine have received in the past. So I think that making sure that it's coming from a trusted source, like a trusted adult, a trusted organization, that's really important. And there really are no dumb questions. I'd rather you come to me with a list of scholarships and we sit there and I cross out the ones that are fake, or not necessarily fake because obviously they're out there, but the ones that aren't worth your time. I would rather do that than have you apply to 30 scholarships and then be disappointed when all 30 of them turned out to be scams. So making sure that your efforts are not being spent on unworthy causes.
That's such a great point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then Leslie, so you've heard students ask before if they ever have to pay back a scholarship. Can you explain the instances in which someone may have to?
Personally, I wouldn't know of an instance where someone would have to pay back a scholarship. A scholarship should be free money for them. I mean, students will lose their scholarship if they go out of the criteria for certain scholarships. You know, some don't have any criteria and you're going to get the money and it doesn't really matter. And some have criteria. And if you fall out of that criteria, you would lose the funds. I don't know that I've ever heard of a scholarship asking somebody to pay for the student to pay it back. I mean, there's Bright Futures, you know, and that's funded by the state. And certainly there are instances if you withdraw from a class very late in the term, they are going to bill you for that because they've already paid out for that. So I guess that would be the closest comparison in having to pay something back. That's not really a scholarship, but it is a form of aid that is free. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but the advice I would give to make sure it doesn't happen is follow whatever the parameters are of what you've received. You know, Bright Futures is very specific. You have to maintain a certain GPA. It's just, it couldn't be any clearer. And then the rules of withdrawing or, you know, failing classes, they're not going to just hand over money to you. So it's like what I was saying earlier. You have to know what you're dealing with. You have to know what the rules are so that, you know, that's on you if afterwards somebody says, well, you know, there's a bill on your account for $1,500 and that's because you withdrew late, for you to say, well, I didn't know that I would have to pay that back, or I didn't know they did that. Well, that's not on them. It's just a matter of being educated and making sure you understand, this is wonderful that I received this. What do I need to do to make sure I'm maintaining this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And students should also be aware that typically there's no monetary reimbursement for scholarships that they have to pay back, but sometimes there are service obligations. So I know that my master's grant and my doctoral grants that I received were both service obligation based, in that I received them every year, and for every year I received them, I had to agree to work in a high needs public school setting for 2 years for every year that the funding was received. I signed agreements to that with, you know, the Florida Department of Ed and the US Department of Education, so I knew what I was doing. But in the event that I had chosen, like, going into the field, okay, I got all this money for my doctorate, got my doctorate, great, everything's paid for. Ooh, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go to work in marketing. I would have owed them that money back because at that point I've not fulfilled my service obligation.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a great
Good point.
point.
Yeah. And we touched on something a little earlier about some like national scholarship programs, right? And you alluded to, well, let me just take a step back. I'm personally aware of some very prestigious programs, and I just kind of did a little search the other day. One program in particular asked, you know, how many applicants did they get for that program? They end up getting 110,000 applications for the program, and they award 250. So how do you know, I think you at some point the students got to ask themselves, you know, what are my odds of receiving the scholarship? Because it's, you know, you're going to invest a lot of time applying for that. And if you're not, you know, that 0.1%, or something specifically that they're looking for, it's really it's a major waste of your time.
Absolutely. So I like starting close to home. So scholarships that if you're a student that, you're not going to apply to 1,000 scholarships, like it's just not in the cards for you. You don't have that motivation. I always encourage you for the ones that you're going to apply for to be purposeful. So start local, school-based, open it up to your city-based scholarships, district-based scholarships, and then go to state-based, because the smaller the applicant pool, the bigger the opportunity of you securing that scholarship.
Yeah.
However, I don't like to discourage from any of those scholarships, because one year in particular, not too long ago, I had a student that was a QuestBridge recipient, a Cameron Impact Scholar, and she received one other full ride. So she ended up graduating with 3 full rides because the scholarships compounded. So she was able to use the additional, like the overflow of money to essentially fund her graduate program and ultimately most likely a PhD, just because of how much additional scholarship funding she secured. That student in particular, I'll never forget that she got all of those scholarships. And then after graduation in July, I get an email from her. Dr. Taylor, I'm applying to this other scholarship. Would you mind going in? And I'm like, you need to slow down. Like, you have gotten 3 full rides. Like, we're still, because, she had a twin sister. Like, she made a huge difference for her family by continuously and continuing that process and never saying like, I don't think I'm going to throw my hat into that ring just because it's too big. So it goes both ways. Like there's students like that are going to continue no matter what. And there's the ones that really need to be focused and purposeful in the scholarships they're applying for.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just wanted to add something along with that. It's funny because she is that one extreme where, you would love to clone that attitude. Also, what we find is that students don't really understand what full ride is.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of students that if they've received an interview for our scholarship, sometimes we'll get a call and they want to pull themselves because they say, I don't need it. I have bright futures or I have something. And we're like, well, what else do you have?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to a school that is not where you live. You have other expenses, but they just don't understand that. They think if their tuition is covered, which is lovely, but that's all that they need. So then they stop making any effort to find any other outside funding. And I think that's a huge point for students to understand at the beginning of this is that, again, there is no such thing as too much money. And
never.
What she did was incredible. And that's exactly what they should be doing.
She's still applying to scholarships. I'm still getting emails saying, please complete this, counselor form for it. I'm like, I laugh every time I get them. I send her a text. I'm like, so we're still going? She's like, yeah, Dr. Taylor, like this is a long game. Like she is studying a career that's it's going to be a lot. But I definitely think that something that families and we encourage our kids and families to do is utilize net price calculators on university websites. Every university has one. Google University of Miami net price calculator. There's nothing worse than a student working incredibly hard, getting into their university of choice, and then finding out that it costs $93,000 a year. That should not be the surprise.
Right.
And it's even worse when that surprise comes right in front of me at my desk with mom and dad and the student, because at that point is when we realize like, oh, this is not feasible. Like I cannot make this work.
Yeah.
Net price calculators are extremely accurate. They have to be. And I consider that worst case scenario. Like if you don't receive a single outside scholarship, this is what it is going to cost you per year. If that's not feasible, we need to explore other options.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Understanding that cost is very important because like what Leslie was saying, tuition is not the full cost.
Not even half.
Yeah,
And the state
like-
of Florida, Bright Futures is phenomenal, don't get me wrong, but if we're putting a dollar amount on it, it's about $8,000 a year.
Right.
Your dorm is going to cost you anywhere between 9 and 14.
Yeah.
So that's not counting you eating, going to football games, having any kind of social life, rushing a sorority, rushing a fraternity. All of these types of things add up extremely quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where the shock comes in. We have a lot of kids that go away. Out of state is a huge draw lately because of the test optional component associated with going out of state. And then they end up coming right back, which thankfully the state of Florida will hold your Bright Futures money for 5 years. In the event that you decide to leave and come back, it will kick in when you get here. But I do think that the biggest part of that is they just don't understand the additional costs associated with going away or even staying local and
Right.
living on campus.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was the cost of attendance was, well, tuition was essentially a third of the cost of attendance.
Yes, it
And
is.
so it's really important for our listeners to know the distinction between, uh, getting your tuition paid for
Mhm.
and then what it's actually going to cost you to go to that school. And schools, the cost of attendance at schools varies incredibly, especially if you're going out of state or you're going to a private college or university. So that component of your scholarship search is really critical. And we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes here, but I think in closing, I want to do a couple things, and one is really to encourage again the students, right? Because it just keeps echoing in my head when we hear this, our scholars say, I just never thought that I was going to get your scholarship. And they did. And not only did they get our scholarship, but they're rock star students. So anybody that's listening, please apply to as many, scholarships that's appropriate for you. And with that, I'm going to ask Leslie, our scholarship applications are becoming available, or maybe when you're listening to this, they probably are available. So Leslie, tell our listeners a little bit about our scholarship, our application, and the things that they need to know to apply.
Well, to be fair, when people are researching our scholarship, we look like we are too good to be true. But we are true, and it is an amazing program. It opens up November 1st, the application, and it closes on February 1st. There's no brownie points to being the first one to submit your application, and we encourage that you not do that. We encourage that you wait until we have come to your school and done a presentation on not only the things that you're going to receive as a Snow Scholar, but the do's and the don'ts of the application. It is a very competitive process, but we back up everything that we say. We treat our Snow Scholars like we would our own family. So the money portion of the scholarship is lovely, and the scholarship can be if you're going into a vocational program, or you want to just get your associate's degree, or you want to attend a 4-year university. You can attend anywhere that you want to attend. You do not have to stay in Florida. There is no minimum GPA requirement. Our only eligibility is financial need. But piggybacking with that, we're not tied to FAFSA. You don't have to be receiving a Pell Grant in order to be eligible for the scholarship. But we also have this entire Scholar Support Services program that has been curated over the many years that we have been in existence, because it really does take a village. It's not... The money is obviously the key to opening the door, but that's just part of it. So many of our students are first generation. This is a brand new experience, especially if you are leaving home and you're going somewhere and maybe you don't have any support system there, but you do, because we are there every step of the way. When they graduate high school, we're going to give them a brand new computer if they need that. We have a scholar closet that we maintain that at the moment you can't even get in the door of the scholar closet. There are so many donations that are in there. Yeah, so it's wonderful for the students to come and be able to shop. For professional, you have an interview and you need something. You're going to a school where it's cold and you don't, coats are expensive, sweaters are expensive, boots are expensive, all genders. So that's a great thing. There's a free mental health program for our scholars and their families. We have a career development program where the staff is solely designed to coach the students on whatever they need: resume writing, interview skills, master classes, and then staff is available there to help you with securing internships and jobs, which is the main goal here. We want to graduate you, in 4 years if possible. We want to get you on your path, whether it's graduate school. We have a graduate school scholarship that we offer the students that have received the undergraduate. So to me, it does sound like it's too good to be true, but we are 1,000% committed to getting students and having them apply. And we do presentations at all the high schools, and we are telling the students, which I am now going to be taking a lot of things that you just said to tell them, because that's such common sense, great advice for the students.
And Leslie, did you say the qualifications for our main program?
Yeah, that there's no GPA, that you just have to have financial need and be in Palm Beach County, attending school in Palm Beach County or Broward County. This is the
Amazing.
first year we are expanding to all of Broward County, so we are so excited about that, and we get to meet a whole new group of students. But we are not Coca-Cola. You're not competing with students on a national level. You're not competing with anybody out of those two counties. And in Broward County, for at least 100 of those scholarships, you're only competing with students in Broward County. So that's 100 scholarships that the only students that can get these scholarships are students in Broward County.
Yeah.
And the qualifications for those are, anywhere from rock star to somebody who struggled in high school and doesn't have that GPA and maybe has some risk factors. So, all students should be applying to the scholarship and should be applying to all scholarships, because there's no such thing as too much money.
Yes.
So if anybody's interested in if you're from Palm Beach County, Florida, Broward County, Florida, go to scholarship.org. And it should be pretty obvious how to get to the link to our applications.
Yes.
And I really want to thank both of you guys for being here, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. I think this is one of the better podcasts that we've done, in the sense of having so many takeaways that our listeners can really utilize real life examples of how to maximize their opportunities for securing financial aid for college. And so we're really grateful for both you guys taking the time out of your day to be here with us and with our listeners. So I want to thank all of you for listening to College Compass by experts at scholarship.org. In our next episode, we've heard a little bit from Leslie, but she's going to be joining us again to do a deeper dive into the scholarships that we offer at the George Snow Scholarship Fund. We're going to walk you through the details of our programs, some of which she's touched on now, but you're going to hear a lot more about them in our next episode. And she's going to help you with the application process. So if you're planning to apply for our scholarships, you're not going to want to miss that episode.
And in the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share our podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and anywhere else you find your shows. You can learn more about the George Snow Scholarship Fund by visiting scholarship.org. You can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at George Snow Scholarship Fund, and on Facebook, TikTok, and X at Snow Scholarship. And as always, we look forward to guiding you through your educational journey. Thank you.